The Toronto Maple Leafs are at a tipping point. However, there's fantasy gold to be had. We're breaking it all down for you on another Saturday special of your daily source for fantasy hockey. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
With only a few teams remaining in our NHL-wide breakdown of every single club's top 5 fantasy targets, we roll into the Toronto Maple Leafs and a team that we got to talk about, my friends. Welcome back inside the lab to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. Steele, dog days of summer are here, but we have also arrived at the team near and dear to our hearts. So, little bit of a treat for us, I think, on today's episode, talking about a Maple Leafs club that I really do think is in a very precarious situation. We'll talk about it. Fantasy-wise is different, and I think there's still a ton of value. However, I'm intrigued to have your take on what the upcoming season might hold for these buds. Over to you, my friend. Top 5 Toronto Maple Leaf fantasy targets.
Look, this is definitely going to be an interesting season. I want to start off by prefacing what I believe is going to happen with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think we're going to see a slight dip in the standings of where they finish. I believe top 5 team, number 4 in the NHL league standings last year. Obviously, losing Mitch Marner via trade to the Vegas Golden Knights is going to have some significant implications on what it means for the other fantasy pieces on this team. However, I still think there's a lot of great things going on, and I've really loved what Brad Treliving has been able to do to kind of fill these gaps, fill these holes, maneuver the cap space as best as he can, and still have some wiggle room going into the start of the season as well. You know, there's still the Robertson deal on the table as well. I believe they're going to arbitration potentially. That is the last one going. So there's still some things that needs to be done. And I've really liked what Treliving has been able to do. I like him bringing in a guy like Dakota Joshua. I like a guy like Nicholas Waugh, who are able to bring that physical aspect on the third line. And, you know, hopefully they can form some chemistry with guys like Bobby McMahon, Max Domi, potentially Matthias Maccelli as well. I think Maccelli is also a really good, interesting piece if he continues to be in the top 6 group, if he stays on the top line with Auston Matthews and Matthew Knies. So those are some honorable mentions right there. At number 5 on my list, I went with Anthony Stolarz.
Me too.
And I went with him over Joseph Woll just because of what the stats have been the last 2 seasons. I know Joseph Woll played more games. I know both guys have been a little bit finicky with some injuries over the last couple of seasons. But Anthony Stolarz, to me, was an absolute rock-solid player and goaltender fantasy value-wise before he went down to this injury. Back-to-back seasons now of a .925 save percentage, back-to-back seasons of a 2.15 goals against average or lower. He put up a record of 21-8-3 last year with 4 shutouts. The season before that, 16-7-2. Even though he has been a perennial backup goaltender, even though he's 31 years old now, I think he really has established himself as a true number 1 goaltender. And I know, again, most likely going to be splitting starts between himself and Joseph Woll. I would still have him ranked as the higher goaltender here. I believe on Daily Faceoff top 300 rankings, Anthony Stolarz comes in at the number 88 spot. That is most likely where I would have him as well, somewhere in between the 85 to 100 ranking. I could see him sliding even past that because of some injuries, plus because of the splitting starts. I love Anthony Stolarz. You know that I had him on 3 of my teams last year, and he was a rock-solid fantasy asset for any squad. So I like this goaltender a lot. I like what he brings to the table. I like how big he is, how confident he is. And his ability to make make the easy saves. It just looks easy out there for Anthony Stolarz. He's never caught swimming or anything.
let's not forget he did finish third in the NHL in goals against last year, 2.14 goals against average. He proved that he can be a big save, big game goaltender. The injury derailed a really good season and probably gave fantasy GMs a little bit of a fit there at the end of the year. But this has got to get out of the way early for me with this team, Steele. Sure, I do like the Dakota Joshua ad. Maselli has some upside for sure. You get a little bit more gritty. You definitely get tougher to play against. But replicating 100-plus points from Mitch Marner during the regular season is going to be a tall task for this top six forward group, unless exactly what you said happens and that bottom six finds some chemistry. There are a few angles and question marks. I totally agree with you with Stolarz at 5. The honorable mentions, I'd even throw maybe Morgan Riley in there as the bounce back candidate in deeper formats as your last D-man ad looking for a little offensive bump. However, Steele, Mitch Marner wasn't able to get it done in the postseason. We know this, not in the clutch and not in those big moments. However, he has been 100-plus point player that good in the regular season. And what does this mean for Auston Matthews' production? We'll talk about that in a little bit more specifics later in the episode. I just needed to throw that in there. Johnny T's got to come in at the number 4 spot. This guy has just been steady as she goes. And I understand the meat grinder of a market, but if we're just focusing on fantasy, John Tavares has been sensational. I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he has done, not only on the ice, but off the ice in terms of passing the C. We don't need to talk about if that was the right move or not, but this guy is just reliable, Steele. The age is getting up there. The foot speed is an issue. So you got to be careful on this player. You don't want to be reaching, but I still think that there is a lot of value in John Tavares. And this all hangs true for a lot of these players headed into this season is there are some question marks in terms of what the forward group looks like. So let's see what they do to start the season, especially in training camp. I want to see what Berube does with these line combos, but 74 points from Johnny T last year, Steele. Maybe that's at the higher end of what you can expect. Maybe he falls back into like 65, 70, but I'm still okay with that because you get a little bit of peripheral love, almost 100 hits last season. He brings it a little bit across the board, and I think he's very reliable.
To me, this ranking at number 4, number 3 really comes down to what you project to have for Matthew Knies and what you expect from him going into the season playing on the top line. I also have John Tavares at number 4, and that's because I have high expectations for Matthew Knies and what his fantasy value brings to the table right now.
I think a lot of us do.
Yeah, I've never really understood the negative outlook and the negative comments from, the hockey community out there, on sort of like, this like subtle hate towards John Tavares, not just fantasy hockey, but like just in general about how he plays, him being a little bit slower. Yeah, there's a lot of disrespect out there for John Tavares. And again, just chatting to my dad sometimes on a night-to-night basis about what this team has done in the offseason, like he's not a fan of John Tavares for some reason. And it always comes back to him being slow and him not being there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This guy put up 70-plus points last year. He's done that 3 out of the last 4 seasons now. He's one of the best centermen in the faceoff circle, rocking the last, 8, 10, 12 years of his career over 50%. Over the last 4 seasons, he's been between 58 and 60% in the faceoff circle. So if that's a category or something going on in your fantasy format, that is a huge bonus as well. He's a player that puts up anywhere between 200 to 280 plus shots right now. So he's done that over the last 4 years. He also just had a career high shooting percentage of 19%. So I'm not sure what's going on with the John Tavares slander and why people really throw out these negative comments. I think there's so much fantasy value, even at the age of 34, 35 years old. He's been a very durable player. He barely misses any games. And if he does, it's only a handful, anywhere between 3 to 5 games a season. He's been very durable. Like you said, over the last 3 years now, he's put up 90 to 140 hits over the last 3 seasons. He puts up a ton of shots. He gets power play points. Yeah, he might be a little slow. He's not the fastest guy out there anymore, but there's so much fantasy value with John Tavares. I'm not here for the disrespect. I think people really do give too much hate towards John Tavares. Not anymore after that hometown friendly deal he just put up for Toronto.
Also popped 5 goals the previous postseason. And let's not forget, This Toronto Maple Leafs team had the Florida Panthers at 2-0 in a second-round series. It didn't work out, did it? But with the expectations that you're returning to the playoffs every single year, and you got a player like Auston Matthews and William Nylander in your top six, just because you lost Mitch Marner doesn't mean that expectations in Toronto or by Leafs fans are going to be lowered. So temper your expectations for what happens this year, but I still think this team has got to be lurking around for a playoff spot. Second year with Craig Berube, all these new additions, there's question marks still, and more than there have been headed into the last few seasons where we think almost assuredly the Leafs are a playoff team. That Atlantic Division is coming for them. We'll talk about it a lot more. We got a lot more to talk about the Leafs on today's show. Make sure you guys tap in all of next week. Steele and I will be here 3 episodes a week all of August. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. You've been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of shopping for tickets. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save $60, 60% off, last-minute killer deals. Don't be scrolling. Don't be stressing. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets and show tickets with Game Time. Download the app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button. Leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Roden. We appreciate you out there. Share with your friends and family. Flip, over to you, my friend. Number 3 on the Toronto Maple Leafs top 5 targets list. Again, you said it. We have the exact same list. It rarely happens for us where we have the same order. But Matthew Knies comes in at number 3.
This is one of those players, Steele, that I think fantasy darling is a term that should be thrown around. And dedicated hockey heads have been on Matthew Knies for a couple of years, waiting for that step, waiting for him to put it all together. He's got a big frame. He's got great hands. He scored some beautiful goals in the playoffs, really kind of showing or teasing that high-end offensive ability that he has that goes along with, I really like this kid's style of play. He plays heavy. He's mixing it up. He knows where to go to the areas as well, Steele. You can't teach that. Goal scorers know where to go, and he seems to be in the spots and has got a nose for the net. And that, I think, is going to translate into mega fantasy success. I don't know if you remember the graphic, but you sent it to me last season. I think there was only 3 players last year that finished with 25-plus goals and 150-plus hits. I think it was something like Tom Wilson, Matty Knies, and another beautiful power forward that you definitely want on your fantasy team. Matty Knies is that. He comes in at 3. I think a lot of people are going to be out there after this player this year, Steele, after what we saw last season and postseason. So you might have to reach a little bit on this player, but I don't think that's a mistake. Over to you for your take. I will just leave it at this. Matty Knies is going to play with Auston Matthews. The Toronto Maple Leafs finished with the 9th most goals in the NHL last year, and they still have William Nylander and Johnny T. They should still be a very offensive-minded club. Let's see what they do, and that should mean big things for Matty Knies.
Yeah, Matt Larkin from Daily Faceoff, again, the top 300 rankings list has him ranked 59th right now going into the fantasy hockey season. Okay. So he's up there. I would have him somewhere in that 6th to 7th round, so maybe a little bit lower than where he's ranked right now. But I love the progression. Let's not forget that he's only been in the NHL for 2 seasons now. He's only missed 6 games in 2 years, but he went from 35 points up to 58 points. He's put up back-to-back seasons of 40 plus penalty minutes. He's getting 18 and a half minutes of average ice time, 182 hits. The physical aspect is there, 152 shots as well, career highs in those categories. 19.1 shooting percentage. And also, he only had 5 power play goals last year. Just imagine what he's able to do when that power play, once again, it's not just solely on Auston Matthews and William Nylander, but Matthew Knies gets into the mix as well and what he's able to do on the man advantage. So I would have Matthew Knies somewhere ranked in that 6th to 7th round. Maybe you could reach on him at reach on him a little bit early in that 5th round. He's got physical aspects. He's gritty. He's energetic. Hits. He brings net front chaos. He's got goals. He's emerging on the power play role for, that foul puck retrieval right in front of the crease. So I look at Matthew Knies, and again, it goes back to what I said for John Tavares is where do you project him? Where do you see him being on this team? And what are your expectations going into the season? I'm projecting Matthew Knies for 75 points here. I don't think that is far. I don't think that's far whatsoever. Like you said, he's on the top line with Auston Matthews, and whether it's William Nylander or Max Domi or Michelli, there's going to be a lot of opportunities getting first power play unit time as well. I could even see an increase in his average time on ice from 18.5 to 19.5. I like this player a lot for what he does peripherally. I think he'd do a lot more as well.
This is intriguing for me, Steele, because, and I've obviously thought probably about this far too much. When it comes down to how I see this team succeeding this upcoming year, and you look at the power play numbers from last year, because you alluded to the power play, and that reminded me that that's something that I think is going to be so essential for this team's success, and that translates directly into your fantasy production, because you mentioned only 5 goals from Matty Knies last season on the power play. You take out Mitch Marner's playmaking ability and just that other superstar on the ice that really kind of stretches the defense. This could be an angle that does impact, you alluded to it off the top, overall production. We're still positive. We still see the progression from Matty Knies, but that's something that I think really will play into this team this year is how will they replace Mitch Marner on that power play? Because like I said, 9th best in the NHL, okay, you're top 10. But then you're talking about the teams around them and how good they are and how good we think they will be. And I'm talking about the Florida Panthers still running it back. Tampa's still going to be right there. We talked about all their studs. Ottawa's improved. Montreal is vastly improved, and we haven't even gotten to the Metro. So there is going to be some good teams on the outside looking in, and that if that starts to happen with this Maple Leafs team, and let's say they do struggle, that's going to impact your fantasy value in a very big way for some of these peripheral pieces. And I'll leave it at this before turning it back to you, and we'll finish up our list here. However, I look at the lineup, Steele. I like that blue line. It's looking pretty solid. Not super sexy, but Tanev and McCabe, Riley and Carlo. Your boy Benoit playing with Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and you got Stolarz and Wall in the cage. To me, the question marks for once headed into the season is the forward group, the bottom 6. What can they do this year? Are those pieces going to mesh? Because if not, it's going to be an interesting year in Toronto. I truly feel that, Steele.
Yeah, it really is. Again, it's a different, it almost kind of feels like a new era, I want to go back to what Auston Matthews had to say in the playoffs after some tough losses is that, it just feels like maybe there's too many passengers on the team, and in the offseason, they got rid of one. That's what it feels like to me. So I'm comfortable. I'm confident going into this season. It is exciting. You got some new blood in the locker room, and you're, again, even with the trade to Vegas, you get Nicholas Roy back, and he spoke about how excited he was to play in Toronto. He's wanted to play in Toronto. He's wanted to wear that jersey. You get guys like that, who want to play with guys like Auston Matthews and William Nylander. So it's super exciting. When we come back after the break, though, we're going to finish up this episode with the top 2 players, of course, William Nylander and Auston Matthews from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Where do you have them ranked? Where do you project their stats for this upcoming season? And where will you draft them going into September as well for your fantasy hockey drafts? All of that and more coming up on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash the subscribe button, the follow button. Leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip, Livingstone, and Steele Roden. Of course, we have the exact same list when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. At number 2, William Nylander comes in at this ranking spot. Look, he has been absolutely fantastic over the last 4 years. 3 consecutive seasons now for William Nylander of 40-plus goals, a career high this last year, 45 goals in 82 games. He's only missed 1 game in the last 4 years. He has been as durable and as reliable as they come. It's 4 straight seasons of 80-plus points. He just had a career high of 98 2 seasons ago in 2023, 2024. He puts up over 250 plus shots over the last 4 seasons as well. Hits and blocks, don't even look at it because it's terrible, but we don't care. A career high shooting percentage as well of 17.8%. William Nylander is projected and was ranked on daily faceoff 19th overall. I think he should be going even higher than this. He is a second round draft pick. If he falls outside the second round, it's big value and big bucks right there if you're able to draft him. He's been super consistent. He's been super reliable. 40 plus goals, 80 plus points. I think he can be a 90 plus point player once again this upcoming season because a lot more falls onto his plate. I look at William Nylander, and he had a slight dip in his assist last year as well. Over the 3 of the last 4 seasons, he's put anywhere between 45 to 58 assists. He dipped down to 39. I think that can get even. I think that can get back up to what we've seen over the last couple of seasons as well. For me, I think he is right there in the middle of the second round. I would project William Nylander. Again, it depends on format, but I would take him somewhere in that. Again, it depends on how many players are in your league as well. If you're in a 16-team league, maybe he just falls into the early second round, 17th, 18th, 19th pick. But if you're in that 10th position or a 10-team league, I think he gets, somewhere in that mid-second round as well.
And if we're talking about agreeing on that space of where to take this player, I agree with you. And I also then, if you're looking at overall rankings of forwards, then he falls into the echelon steel of the Sam Reinharts, the Jack Hughes, even guys like Matthew Tkachuk in terms of what you're going to expect from them value-wise. You mentioned the peripherals. William Nylander is a superstar. And he has taken a lot of heat in this market. And obviously Mitch Marner had too, for not being able to get it done in the clutch, quote unquote. If anybody has been a big time performer in the postseason, it has been William Nylander over the last couple of seasons. Big game winning goals, 3 of them. He also has 58 point steal in 67 postseason games. Last season alone, 15 points in 13 postseason games. This guy is a dynamo, and he is so good. I swear down in any other market who don't spit and chew up their players and spit them back out again. This guy is way more loved and way more respected. You talked about the disrespect to Johnny T. It can sometimes relate to other players too. I think fantasy-wise, people understand. I just mean, look at William Nylander and what he can do. And you mentioned that maybe that bit of added responsibility now with Mitchie gone. I think that might mean huge things for this guy this season, and I want him on my team very bad. I have a feeling this is going to be another situation of you and I fighting it out for this player, so I hope I come out lucky on this one.
I don't think you will, because I will be reaching on him, like I just said. Not even reaching. I think he just falls into that second round, and what he's been able to do over the last 4 seasons, he's just been consistent. He's been reliable. He doesn't get injured, so I like this player a lot. Obviously, at number 1, though, is Auston Matthews. Number 1, the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, has clearly struggled with some injuries the last few years from time to time, but still, he's a point-per-game player, 78 points in 67 games, still had 261 shots. If he can play close to a full season, he's putting upwards of 320-plus shots. He's one of the best forwards in the game for blocks as well. 90, 78, 67 blocks, or 93, 92 blocks over the last few seasons. The physical aspect of his game has also increased. And look, he had his second worst shooting percentage of all time. 12.6 shooting percentage. We knew that there was a lingering wrist injury, whatever it was, that was affecting his goal scoring ability, yet he still put up 33 goals. We've seen him put up 40. We've seen him put up 60. We've seen him put up 69. I think he falls somewhere in between the 40 to 50 goal range. I've already said it over the last couple of seasons as well. His playmaking ability is one of the most underrated aspects of his game, and I don't think people are cluing in on how good of a playmaker and a passer he really is. That's 3 of the last 4 seasons now of 45-plus assists for Auston Matthews, too.
Good point.
I'm not going to say that he's going to go back into the triple digits, 100-plus points, but I think he could get up to 90, 95 points this next season if he stays healthy, if he can increase his shooting percentage as well. And again, hopefully there's no more lingering injuries for Auston Matthews. And right now he's currently ranked 10th on Matt Larkin's top 300 list on daily faceoff.
Has him at 7, I believe.
Yeah, so I think that's, I think 7, I think 10 is very fair for Auston Matthews, because like you and I have discussed, the top 4 guys, McKinnon, Draisaitl, McDavid, and Kucherov, those are solidified right there.
Yes.
I think when you get to number 5 through 7, those guys are also solidified in that area as well. Cale Makar, David Pastrnak, Kirill Kaprizov, and then you get into the potential goaltender of Connor Hellebuck. You get into the Mikko Rantanen that we just discussed on the last episode. Kyle Connor potentially, Brady Tkachuk, Mitch Marner, those type of guys. Auston Matthews, for me, he falls anywhere in that 7 to 10 range, but he is definitely a first-round draft pick.
When you score 69 goals in the NHL, I don't really actually care what happens after that. You're going to be very fantasy relevant. And once again, Steele, this is all, I don't want to beat a dead horse, because it's a similar narrative that we've talked about with this team.
Yeah.
But now, even more pressure is on Auston Matthews' shoulders, I would say, to perform. And we just kind of touched on it with William Nylander. He's going to take some of that load as well. It really has to be, I've said this to you in the postseason, and I know we kind of had a slight disagreement, because you made the good point of it doesn't always have to be Auston Matthews driving the offense. To me, it does. It has to run through 34. He has to return to that game-changing level, and I'm here for what you're saying about his complete 200-foot game, because when he is on his game, and that means getting the most out of him fantasy-wise, blocks, hits, whatever, it is when he is disrupting plays at the other end, taking it in transition, and absolutely rifling it. When healthy, this is the best shooter in the game. No disrespect to Kill Bill, no disrespect to Ovechkin. This is the best goal scorer in the NHL. When he is healthy, I think you're going to see a bit of a bounce-back season from Auston Matthews, one in which he has to carry this team. I think putting him ahead of Pastrnak by a spot, I would do still. I would take him over Pasta, but it's pretty close. I'm with you on the rankings. I'm already fired up for draft season, though, Steele, because I'm okay with taking Auston Matthews. If I'm in that kind of, if I got the 7th to 10th spot in the draft and my first pick, I'm going after Poppy for sure.
Yeah, and that even might be a value pick at that point, because we were having him in the top 5 over the last few seasons. Look, we're excited for fantasy hockey. We're excited for the Toronto Maple Leafs to get back after it as well. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, please check out the Locked On NHL Podcast, because there is no off season. They continue to bring the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And once again, good luck with all those summer bets on FanDuel. Let us know what you got cooking up in the comments below, and we shall see you next time.
Peace.